All right, guys, today we're going to share with you some of the myths from sellers' point of view of looking at VA loans.
You better get fired up.
Happy Monday, Lissette. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Joe?
I'm amazing. How was your Mother's Day?
Amazing. We met with family on Saturday and enjoyed a beautiful day on the boat on Sunday. So exactly what I wanted to do.
That's
It was
perfect,
great.
man. That's exactly the way it should be. Good for you. So guys, today we're going to talk about VA loans. As a seller, you traditionally have 4 different types of offers that come in. One is going to be cash. That's what everybody wants. You've got conventional, FHA, and VA. VA is specifically for those who are either currently in the military or armed services or have been in the past, right? It's a wonderful benefit that those folks are able to take advantage of. And it comes with a certain stigma, right? Not only for sellers, and honestly, I'd say maybe even less for sellers and more so for listing agents. A lot of agents who just maybe aren't as educated on this particular loan type and the different risks associated or lack thereof with the VA loan. So today we thought we'd talk about some of these different myths and give you our actual experience with these different things. So Lissette, why don't you kick it off? Give us the first myth and talk to us a little bit about it.
So the first one is a situation I actually had a couple years ago. Is I had a seller, we had a great offer, and it was a VA loan, and they were very hesitant on accepting the offer because they thought it was going to take them a lot longer to get to the closing table, and they already were under contract on another property in another state. And I had a great conversation with the lender, and they reassured me we could get it closed within 30 days, if not sooner. And we accepted the offer, and it went so smooth. We had no issues, and I think we actually closed a few days earlier before 30 days. So we get a lot of pushback from sellers thinking that's going to take longer, the process is going to be drawn out, when in reality they take as long, if not even at times maybe less than a traditional loan.
Yep, spot on. There's really no difference. The process is the process is the process, regardless of the loan type you've got. And to be able to close in the typical 30 to 45 days isn't a problem for any one of those 3 types of loans. And again, if you've got the right lender, if you've got pre-underwriting done, there's a lot of different things you can do up front. You might even be able to close in 2 to 3 weeks, depending upon who you're going with and what that timeline looks like. So that's a great one. I appreciate you starting with that one. The first one I'm going to bring up is appraisals tend to come in lower, right? The concern is, hey, maybe I've got a $500,000 property. If I get a conventional loan, my appraisal will probably come in at 5, maybe even 510, 520, and we're good to go. But if we go with a VA offer for whatever reason, maybe that appraisal comes in at 480, 490. Now I got to negotiate with the buyer as to how we're going to get this through. Am I going to have to drop my price? That's a risk. But what we found is it really doesn't matter, right? You're going to have, remember, the appraisal is a person, right? So that person going out is going to look at the property, they're going to look at the comps, and they're going to have to make a justification based on those comps. But they're all trained in the same way. There's a set standard for that industry that they've got to follow. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be differences. There will be. But just as many people will be low on a VA that will be low on a conventional or an FHA. And the same is true on the high side. You'll get people who are a little higher, everything else. But when you look at it, it's the same with realtors, right? If I go to a listing appointment and I tell you, whoever's listening to me right now, that your home is worth X, if you get 4 other agents in there, 2 of them are going to be higher than me, 2 are going to be lower than me, depending on how they look at that data, right? So it's not a specific FHA, VA conventional thing. It's a person-to-person thing. What I find is that you'll have an agent who maybe does 50 deals a year, and maybe 3 of them, 4 of them are VA offers, and maybe 1 or 2 of them come in low on appraisal, and they spread the word to everyone that VA appraisals come in low. But what they don't realize is you only did 4 all year. That's a pretty small bubble to be able to make that kind of data call on. And we tend to listen to the people who are speaking, the agents who are happy, who have the appraisals coming in. They're not talking. They're not posting and chatting about what happened because they're happy. Everything went the way it was supposed to. So you tend to hear the people who are complaining, and it's such a small amount, it just doesn't happen. So wanted to share that. Lissette, what else do you have?
Again, I get pushback a lot from sellers telling me we don't want to accept VA because we're going to have to go through a very strict inspection, and they're going to come up with a bunch of list of things they're going to want us to repair. And it's specifically, I've heard this quite a few times from properties that are newer. And I'm so surprised that they go with this myth of thinking they're going to have an issue. And even with properties that are older, the VA wants to make sure that your veteran is purchasing this property that is habitable, that is in correct living conditions. But they're not making it extremely harder for the buyer to get to the closing table. They just want to make sure you have flooring, you have basic appliances in the kitchen, you don't have wood rot around the property. So necessary, it's not going to be a stricter inspection that you would that if you were going FHA or conventional.
Spot on. So then the strategy becomes, as a seller or as a listing agent, what type of condition is our home in? If you've got a home that's 3 years old and it's concrete and it's in great condition, you shouldn't be fearful of a VA inspection at all, right? Now, if you've got a home that was built in 1979 and it's got some wood rot outside, which a lot of homes do, up to maybe 2000, 2005, there's a lot of wood rot. It happens. Wood rot's pretty affordable to repair, though. I'll tell you, if you've got a board or two, which usually it's 1 or 2 boards, maybe your fascia boards or whatever it is, you're maybe looking at $200, $300, $400 on average. I don't know that I've ever seen wood rot on a home other than an investment, like a flip, but on a normal home that a normal home buyer is going to purchase. If they're purchasing with a conventional loan or cash and that wood rot does not come up, I would say on anything 1995 or older, probably 60, 70% of them have wood rot anyway. It's just not to the extent where the buyer is overly concerned about it and wants to fix it, right? But when you get into a government-backed loan like VA or FHA, the government's saying, hey, we want to make sure you buy something that has very little safety issues or health concerns. And they look at wood rot as one of those concerns. Doesn't matter if you agree with them or not, they make it be repaired. It's got to be repaired before you close on it. But again, I'll tell you, I don't know how many I've had to repair, or maybe it's even conventional or cash, and the buyer wants it repaired anyway. I've never seen it go over $500, $600, and that's paying a professional to come out and do it. It's really affordable. If you're going to do it yourself as the seller beforehand, it's going to cost you even less. It's going to cost you the wood and the paint to redo it. It's probably going to be on $100, $200, and it's going to open up your buyer pool to way more buyers, right? Both FHA and VA. So to be concerned about that, in my opinion, you're worried about saving, let's say, $200 to $600, but you're missing out on a load of some of the strongest, most excited, most motivated buyers out there. So you're saving $200 to $600 to lose $5,000 to $10,000. It really doesn't make sense. Is there a risk? Yeah, there's a risk. They're a little more stringent on the inspection. But again, unless you've got a leaking roof or an appliance that doesn't work or wood rot, you're probably not going to see those issues. So Lissette, I think that's a phenomenal one. Here's another one. And this one, I honestly didn't even know. I never even thought of this one, but apparently people think that they fall apart more often, whereas it's actually the other way around. FHA and conventional have a larger fall through rate than a VA loan. Now, I don't know what the why is on that. I'm going to make an assumption because I just found this data about 20 minutes ago. But I would assume this. I was in the Army for 10 years. If I am under contract on a home and I got to close on June 1st, I'm going there with my family on June 1st, whether I close on that house or not. I got the job. I'm in the military. I have to be there. I need a house. So I am much more motivated to get in that house and get to work, get my family all situated. I don't have time or the desire. A lot of these guys don't have the desire either to sit and negotiate, play games, whatever. If there's an issue, they're going to be very direct in what it is they can do. The seller's going to have the answer right away, and they close at a higher rate. But that was something I wasn't aware of. Is that something you were aware of, Lissette?
The pushback I get a lot from sellers is they're not as qualified. So a lot of times they do think the deal will fall through. I didn't know that rate was that statistic.
Isn't that crazy?
But yeah, I do get that pushback all the time. And I'm like, no, they've got to get qualified just like any other buyer does. So again, that's just another myth.
All right, what else you got?
Let's see here. That they have a lot of upfront fees. So on the buyer side, they're thinking they may have too many fees. And actually there is certain rules and regulations to control how much of a fee these VA buyers are charged as well.
Yeah, and it says right in the contract, this amount, and there's a blank spot in there, is what the seller agrees to pay in VA fees or FHA fees if it's an FHA loan. You can put 0 in there, right? Now, that doesn't mean there's not going to be a fee. but it's 100% negotiable. So you can choose to pay the fee, not pay the fee as a seller. It doesn't really matter. In my opinion, I always tell my sellers, don't worry about whether you're paying fees or not. If you got to pay $500 in fees, but they offer you $700 more in price, do you really care? I don't care. I'll take the $200 net. Let's just see what the offer is, and it either works for us or it doesn't. But no,
Exactly.
you're not forced as a seller to pay any additional upfront fees because you're working specifically with a VA loan, right? Here's another one. Tougher underwriting standards. You actually have better underwriting standards. They are looser on credit scores than your traditional loan, and they're also looser with your debt to income ratios than a traditional loan. They're backed by the government. So the government is saying, hey, because you have committed to our country, whether you're in the Navy or the Army or the Marines or whatever it is, we're going to give you a backed loan by the government to ensure that you can get into something. And we're going to be a little bit looser because we want to show you some appreciation. And that also is probably what leads to the higher closing rates as a percentage of those that go under contract compared to the other loan types. But it's actually looser when it comes to standards, which means you as a seller know that if there are some back-end issues, it might be an issue with other loan types, but the odds of it being an issue with a VA are lower. And that's important to know. Lizette, what else you got?
Wow, you did a great job covering all those points. I just want to say out there to the sellers, just you don't want to tighten your pool of buyers. So making sure that you make this property available to as many buyers as possible is so important. And accepting those VA offers. And if you have any concerns that your property might have some issues in the inspection period, also be mindful that the agent coming with the buyer that has the VA buyer is also conscious of this, and they're looking at the property as well. And they see any red flags, they already mention it to their buyer and say, maybe we shouldn't submit an offer for this reason.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal point. And I'll end with this, and I kind of already alluded to it. I think it's almost not in your interest. It goes against your interest as a seller to limit the type of financing that you'll accept. That doesn't mean you'll accept a specific loan type over another, or you'll accept a financed offer over a cash offer. I'm not saying that, but I think anytime you limit yourself, you're really being closed-minded to opportunities, and you're taking your buyer pool and shrinking it, to your point, Lizette. So always, in my opinion, offer it. Even if you've got a home that you've got wood rot, you've got a roof leak, whatever it is, that buyer may be willing to make it such a phenomenal offer for you, knowing that they've got a government-backed loan that's going to ask for some of those things to be repaired. They might be kicking in a higher price. They might be, helping with some of the different ways to repair that. Whatever it is, you don't know if you close that option off. So in my opinion, always leave it open. If you've got a problem with the loan type based on some of the issues you have, then you can talk about it when you get the offer. And any good listing agent is going to bring that up in the listing presentation when you're working on all the paperwork and everything else. They're going to explain everything that I just explained to you, but it's not going to be general like we're talking right here. It's going to be specific to your home and what they foresee your concerns and risks being. So great points, Lizette. I appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, whether you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube. If you've got comments, questions, whatever it is, always put them in, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Have a phenomenal day.
Have a great one.